And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of the Doing the Work podcast. As tonight, Jeff Marlowe and I will give you a quick update from the Women's Basketball Media Day that happened on September 22nd. I'm your host, Kathy Amos, and along with my co-host here, Jeff Marlowe, we're on Doing the Work, the newest show on the Back Home Network that's dedicated to covering IU women's basketball. And as we do most shows, we start our show with our banner moment. Tonight's banner moment actually came today on the 5th of October. So both Grace Berger and Mackenzie Holmes were named to the All Big Ten preseason team for the second year in a row. This is a momentous occasion for the program, showing the program's ability to recruit, develop, and retain talent needed to become a sustainable and winning program. And our banner moment, as always, is sponsored by Home Field Apparel. Home Field Apparel is constantly releasing new schools or updating the products for current schools that's in their existing line. So you're bound to find something that you want or somebody in your friends or family would want. And don't forget, holiday season is not too far around the corner, believe it or not. So whether you want only IU gear, other college, or even NFL teams, Home Field Apparel probably has something for you. And if you haven't been to Home Field Apparel, go now to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME, HOME, to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code HOME to get 15% off. Again, the website is homefieldapparel.com and wear one for the team. All right. Here we go.
Oh, you're adding music.
I'm adding a little bit here. So I'm getting ready to kick it over to Jeff. We're going to kick it to Jeff, who's a former girls high school basketball coach. So we're going to send it to him right now for Jeff's for Coach's Corner. So Jeff, what is on your mind tonight?
Well, Kathy, I totally agree with you about the banner moment. Obviously, that news came out today, so we wanted to go with that. But I will say I want to put in the fact that what was going to be our banner moment, we had this scheduled last week, was going to be, if you have not seen this Workaholics, go to Instagram or know somebody that does. But Yarden Garzon had an Instagram photo of her in her IU gear, her foot on a basketball, and her caption was blank Purdue. And it just totally, I loved it because that was like, here's a freshman and traveled 6,000 miles to understand the rivalry, and so I thought that was awesome that Yarden put that on her Instagram. And I'm sure that we all can fill in the blank there. And if her court on the attitude is the same, it's going to show that she's really a Hoosier early on in her career. And once a Hoosier, always a Hoosier, as we always say. But I will say this as well about coming in tonight and talking about Media Day. And then with the news that came out today about the Big Ten preseason rankings and stuff, just finally feel like we're starting, Kathy, to get some news really kind of maybe on a more regular basis now. And that'll lead to us having more content and stuff as well as we head toward the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll definitely start seeing things rolling out. We got preseason things coming out. And if you haven't checked it out, Grace and Mackenzie both were nominated for several preseason awards and watch lists as well. Again, we won't get into it all here, but go to iuhoosiers.com and you can find the articles there, or make sure you follow them on Twitter if you're not already.
Well, and maybe before talking about Media Day, Kathy, I'll throw it to you. What did you think of the preseason team ranking? It was Iowa was the consensus number one team, but then the media and the coaches had IU and OSU flipped. One poll had them second, one had IU third in the league, and vice versa for Ohio State. And then Maryland was the consensus 4. And then one group had Michigan 5th, and another had Nebraska 5th. So what do you think of do you think that's about? And I would like to see maybe some first place votes in that. I really think those are the 3 teams, though, that are going to be at the top at the end of the year. And I think it's going to be a fun race at the end of the year.
I do too, Jeff. I mean, I was actually just talking with a friend about this earlier today, and he was asking me my thoughts. This is kind of similar to what you're doing. And I haven't delved enough into the other team schedules to really understand in terms of if they have a much harder conference schedule or not yet. I mean, we've looked at Indiana's, but I haven't looked at the other schools, although I'm not sure that it matters with the schools that you mentioned in the top. It does matter in order, but I think right now it feels like, again, not knowing Iowa's schedule in detail, it feels like Iowa's conference to lose right now.
Yeah, and Caitlin Clark, And Caitlin Clark was I would say, unanimous preseason player of the year, which was a no-brainer, I think, coming into the season. The other thing too, Kathy, I don't know if you saw this one yesterday. I forgot to mention to you, we were texting back and forth. Charlie Cream had updated his early bracketology, and he had IU as a number 3 seed and hosting in Bloomington still. So okay. I thought, some good news that was released yesterday or the day before, but I think yesterday.
Okay, good. I'll have to go look that up. No, I haven't. I must have missed that one. So, all right, Jeff. So we're doing our best attempt here at trying to keep it to a short program. So how about we delve right into Media Day and what I thought we would do. So for those who maybe don't know, Media Day highlighted of course, Coach Morin, and then Sydney Parrish and Chloe Moore McNeil. I thought from those 3, we'll start with and just each of us pick one highlight that we want to talk about. And then if we still have time, there were some interviews with Jim Coyle for Grace and Mackenzie. We can touch on those. They were much shorter, obviously, than the actual Media Day interviews that we had with the 3 that I mentioned. So hopefully that works for you. And if not, we'll wing it and we'll do whatever we want because, it's our podcast. So with Jeff, I'll put it to you first. So let's start with Coach Morin. What is the first thing that you want to talk about that came out of her Media Day?
I'm going to kind of combine 2 things here, Kathy, and that's
where cheating.
I know, but I think they go together. I really do. She talked a little. She was asked specifically about kind of the recruiting process, about her recruiting philosophy, and the fact that they've had some success in the transfer portal, even before it really became the transfer portal. But also the fact that she made mention that you still need some 4-year kids, some high school kids are going to come stick around for 3-4 years. And such. And that's kind of where the Grace Berger falls in, the Mackenzie Holmes falls in, but yet you still can't just kind of sit back and wait for every class to come around. You got to still be active. And I think she felt like she had to find some shooting in this portal. And that goes out and gets a Sarah Scalia. Hopefully a Sydney Parrish will do what we've seen her do at Oregon and in her high school career. And so I think she felt like that had to be. And that was the one thing. The other thing, then she was asked about bench depth. And I so badly wanted to say, you have to make them be deep. You can't just go 7. I know it sounds I'm being negative, but there were just too many times last year where we had opportunities to get a 7-8 person rotation kind of going, and we stuck at 6.5. So she says, she made the comment that she hopes to have more depth, and we're welcome to the idea of being able to have depth. And then she also said that, but you only get experience by playing. Well, that's true. And I know when you're trying to fight for seeding in the NCAA tournament, it's hard to give away games, but I just say we have to find a way especially with kids like Chloe Moore McNeil and who I like, and I'm not sure she'll be a star, but she has to get minutes. Yarden has to get minutes, in my opinion. I'd love to see Caitlin Peterson get more minutes and so on. So I think, we really have the opportunity here and don't have to overwork. She made the comment that, Mackenzie and Grace and Allie and Nikki were all capable of carrying that kind of load. I was also one of those where I would like to be like, I'm not so sure that was true at the end of the year when they were, getting, especially since Mac was hurt at that point. So there were some things there I wanted to be like, yes, I agree with you and I hope those come true. But I also want to be like, let's actually do that and not just talk about it in the press conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing I had was the same thing you had, which was her hopes and expectations to have a deeper bench. So the secondary thing that I kind of took away, and I'll combine 2 as well. Then if we're gonna play that game, that'd be great. Let's do it.
It's our show.
It is our show. We can do it. We can change the rules on the fly if we want. It's amazing. So the 2 things that kind of stuck out, very similar to what you're talking about, the bench play, but the thing that I really loved hearing was about Chloe. So and I'll quote, she had a great, fantastic summer, and she has the opportunity to not just start, but to also play big minutes. And so we've been talking a lot about guesses to a starting 5 and who might be there and who might not. And we've put Chloe in and we've taken Chloe back out and we put her back in, I think a couple of times. After hearing that from Coach Morin and the fact that Chloe was made available on Media Day, to me, I think I'm slotting her into that first starting five. I think that Chloe is probably going to have a breakout year. Again, this is all speculation on a 20-minute interview from Coach Moore and some other comments, but we've been hearing that from other people that are close to the program as well. So I'm really excited about that. And then she also just reminded people that transfers aren't new for her, right? Like Allie Papberg, as much as we think of her as being at Indiana for forever, she wasn't. Brenna Wise was also another huge transfer in the program. And so, the fact that they like to look for that fit, both of the need of the team as well as the personality of the person, I think that fits well. Also kind of plays along with why probably Sydney Parrish was also selected to go to media day with Chloe.
And I will add on to that a little bit that she did mention in that press conference, in that media day availability, about how they had some injuries during the summer, some things that they were some kids getting over some stuff, maybe some nagging stuff. Didn't sound like it was going to be anything coming in that you had to worry about once practice started. But again, kind of the typical what we get from the IU women's program is they're pretty tight-lipped about any injuries. And I think during the summer, there was, we had somebody who texted us or put in the community about somebody being seen as nursing an injury. And we really hadn't, she made no mention of any specifics, but from what it sounded like, shouldn't be anybody being held out of practice come when they started practice, which I think they started the end of last week or the beginning of this week.
Yep, that's what I think too. So, all right, well, let's move on to Sydney Parrish. So Sydney was also made available on media day. Do you have any one or two comments from her that stuck out to you that you really liked hearing?
I think I'll pick on this one, which is about the recruiting and how she talked about it felt a little awkward at first, but she had been through the recruiting process with IU, and that made me feel better because there have been some times when you've kind of had questions about how aggressively we've gone after some of the high profile in-state talent. And Sydney was a pretty high profile recruit in that class. And so I really liked hearing that Coach Moore had done a good job and just didn't get her at that point, but the relationship was still there. And I think, and the way Sydney phrased it, it didn't have to rebuild or build a relationship. It was still kind of almost like they picked up where they left off in the recruiting process from a couple of years ago. So I liked hearing that part about how that, not only was she looking to come back home to Indiana per se, but to get to the home state school, because she felt like she'd built a pretty good relationship with Coach Moore and the staff back then. And so I think that really tells us some things about what they're doing on the recruiting trail as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And she was asked specifically what made IU a fit. And she said she kept her options open. But this was, like you mentioned, one of the reasons was she could go back home. But she said this in the media day and as well when she had her interview with Jim Coyle. It's because she wanted to be on a winning program that is known nationally. And has a winning culture, and that made it very exciting for her to come back. I thought that was really great, right? Because I'm sure she had other options. Notre Dame has also been around a long, long time in women's basketball, and I would be shocked if that wasn't on her list as well. Still close to home and also a winning program. To me, this says a lot, and we've been talking about this quite a bit over the last year since we've been doing our show together. The culture that Coach Morin is building is important because of being able to get recruits and to be able to sustain it. And I think this speaks directly as a fact to what Coach Morin is doing and how it's working. And so to me, that was like because she repeated herself twice, like I said, media day interview, Jim Coyle interview, and she was very consistent in why she was coming.
I want to point this out too here, Kathy. The thing I noticed in all of the player interviews was that the team, it'll have a lot of the same principles. I imagine they meant defensively, but it should be at least at the beginning, a different look team, a little bit more 3-point shooting team than what we're used to, which you and I have been, had been, as far as on the show last year when we kind of got going with this, just desperately like, please shoot some threes and make some threes. But I thought that was the one thing that stuck to me with kind of all the player interviews was a lot of things going to be the same, but it's also a different team, not just because of personnel, but because style is going to change. And I felt like I took that to mean more offensively than defensively.
Yeah, I did too. In fact, Jim Coyle tried really, really hard, right, to get that out of both Grace and Mackenzie when he did the interview with them. He really was asked them, I don't know how many times, is this team better than last year's team? Is this team better than last year's team? And it's different. And Mackenzie was very adamant saying, I'm not going to say which team's better or worse. This team's just different. But yes, consistently, I think all four mentioned the 3-point shooting on this team. And even Coach Moore did too, of course, mentioning Sarah Scalia in her comments. So with all of our people that we heard talking, they all were consistent in saying they think it'll be a better shooting team.
And one of the things that Sydney really talked about, and because she was the one person in the transfer portal that I saw, and I only saw the Jim Coyle interview with her, but talking about just kind of building chemistry. I'd like to really know what they did. Wouldn't you really like to? What kind of things did they do to get those? Because you got, what did they say, seven new people acclimated to 7 people who were held over. So what kind of things were they doing to kind of build that? I know they were playing. I know they were doing that stuff, open gym, things like that. But what were they doing as far as hanging out together? Were they going on some excursions somewhere? We kind of interested to know what they did to try and help build some of that camaraderie in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Sydney mentioned that specifically. She said the team had gotten really close, but the day before, or just a day or two before media day, she said they did another team building I don't know if I would call it an exercise, but a team building activity. And she said the women went into it thinking they didn't really need it, and they came out even closer than they went into it. So that I think is really great to hear as well. So that they're definitely trying to build that. Yes. So they had 4 freshmen, 3 transfers all coming in. So 7 newbies with 7 returning players. So speaking of returning players, let's move on to Chloe. So what kind of things did you gather from her media day presence? Other than just her being there was great to see.
I like the part when she talked about she feels like the next step in her development is defense. Yeah. And I think there's some ways for that gets her more minutes. And because she's athletic, she can guard multiple spots if she puts her mind to it. And then also the things that her athleticism allows her to do in the offense is going to allow her to get more minutes. So if she can get to that defensive level that Coach Morin's been that Coach Morin wants in her program. And at times I think she's felt like Chloe and some of the other kids off the bench weren't quite there. Now last year, Chloe to a certain degree played almost out of default because once some of the kids got hurt and we had, like Mac and stuff, we started playing Chloe more, but she proved she belonged. So now for her to say that made me feel better about her understanding of what the game is for her at that level.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, Jim Coyle's in his interview kept asking her a few times, what just happened for you last year? And she just couldn't quite put her finger on it. She's like, just something clicked where I knew I needed to work harder. And Coach Morin pulled me aside after a game and said, we just need more from you. And I just found another level. And then she said, and I want to continue that on to defense this year, is to grow her game on that side as well. So I liked hearing that. She also mentioned the team bonding session as well, just like Sydney did. The other thing that Chloe said that I know I heard Mackenzie talk about, and perhaps even Grace, but I know for sure Chloe and Mackenzie both mentioned was Allie Patberg. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want to overlook the importance, which we knew when she came back into the program as onto the staff. They've all talked about her. She's been a great teammate. She's been a great friend. And now she's transitioning into this mentor for them, and that it's very important for them to have her around the program still. So those were 2 common comments I heard from a couple of the players as well.
Yeah, and I think Allie will be a big part. I think you will see Allie Patberg go up the coaching ranks pretty quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah. It feels like she has all the makings right there, right? She definitely has the knowledge. She had the talents when she played, and she clearly is passionate. So I think that all translates in, and it sounds like it's already, transitioning her from player to mentor for the coach. So we have a few minutes left here. Jeff, is there anything else from Grace or Mackenzie that you thought was interesting to point out from their interview with Jim Coyle?
Part of it, the one with Grace, and part of it, I think, is just good team speak, where she talked about how she felt like it was the most complete team from top to bottom, and the team she's most excited about, even with the unknowns. And I get that. I'm sure that she's not trying to say anything bad about the kids, the team's previous, but I do think she has a point. I do think she's right. I think when you, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I think that this may be Terry Morin's deepest offensive team. You throw in Grace and Mackenzie, we know what they can do. And then Sarah Scalia, who was an all Big Ten performer last year. Sydney Parrish, who played at a high profile program. All right. Those 4 we hope for. And then a Chloe and Alyssa Geary, but also the freshmen, especially with Garden, is there's a lot of things being said, still kind of under the radar, but rumor mill type stuff that she end up may be the one that moves into that starting role. And I think Terry Morin even said that she could play anywhere basically from a 1 to a 4. And so that to me was the biggest thing with Grace. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest difference in IU is on the offensive side, because I think there's going to be so many, barring injuries, that they're going to have more weapons consistently than they've probably had in Terry Morin's tenure at IU.
Yeah. So what coach said was Yarden has a chance to be a really, really good player. You could see her, you might be seeing her at the point or even all the way out to the stretch 4. And yeah, Grace said that this is the most complete team from top to bottom and the team she's most excited about, even with the unknowns. And she's excited about how many offensive weapons we'll have that they really have not had in the past. So this, if we weren't excited before, and then the schedule came out, we became even more excited. Now we start hearing comments and we start seeing, small clips from practices on Twitter. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand how October is going to go fast enough for us. Jeff, any other questions that this brought up for you? Are there lingering questions? Did it present new questions for you after hearing all the interviews?
It's not so much a lingering question, but I'm more actually kind of from the former coach's side of it, Kathy, is I get a real sneaking suspicion we may not see a consistent starting 5. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think you may see more A, competition for spots, and B, I think maybe Terry Morin will try to play matchups a little bit more. I think, or even make other teams forced to match up. For example, if you want to put Garden in the starting lineup, then you really become that becomes a pretty big starting lineup. For example, if you play a Garden at the 1. And I think maybe that may be the one lingering question. We're all kind of figuring out who's going to play the 1. I'm still not sure that's really going to matter. I still have the opinion they're going to see Grace Berger with the ball in her hands quite a bit. Maybe not a traditional point guard 1 role, but I think you're going to see Grace facilitate a lot of that offense to get it initiated. So what about you? Got anything you still lingering in your mind?
I think I still have the same lingering questions. I feel better about them, which my main 2 coming into the season are team chemistry. Are they really going to be able to build it again? You have half of your team is brand new. I feel better about it. I really do. There were, a lot of comments, very common comments among the players about all the team building and team chemistry that they've already built up before even practice started. And then of course the bench play. I feel like Coach Morin mainly helped me feel better about that, but I'm still a little nervous when she added on the comment of, well, I do understand you have to play to get better. So it's still like in the back of my mind, it feels like maybe our freshmen and even some of our sophomores, we won't see as much as perhaps we would like to see them. So that's my biggest lingering question.
Yeah. And I'll just pass this one along as well. And Quang mentioned it in the Workaholics with the chat. They did announce the other day, Monday, that the wall posters are now available. And I believe you can order those from the IU website, the IU athletic website, both men and women. And then also remind everybody, Hoosier Hysteria is this Friday night for the men and the women. I will admit I'm not going to be watching it this year. I have a football game I'm doing here locally on the radio, so I won't be watching. After watching it last year, I'm not sure it was worth my BTN Plus subscription at that point either. So, but that's my personal opinion. But so I won't be able to watch it this year. But those are just kind of a couple things for our fans who listen to the podcast or are watching us live on YouTube.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Jeff. Yeah, I will be watching. They had some special on Big Ten Plus where you could get like an all schools access for a year for some, for Big Ten Plus, some cheap amounts that I got earlier this summer. So I went ahead and signed up for that. I haven't used it once, but I will definitely use it this Friday. So I made sure I could still log in and I'm ready to go. So, yes. And if you haven't ordered posters, and I know there's been a few comments here and there in different areas that I've seen around the costs, just remember it is going to the players. At least a big portion of that money goes to the players for NIL. So $12 may seem like a lot for posters, but in this day and age, you really don't get much for free anymore. And you really are supporting your own school programs, both men and women, if you buy one of each. So just maybe keep that in mind when you see the sticker shock if you haven't yet. So. Well, with that, Jeff, I think we'll just talk quick about programming info. So we don't, again, have an exactly scheduled podcast, but I'm sure we'll be back soon. As Jeff mentioned, we'll start having more news coming out. So hopefully you'll see us a little more regularly in October here as we lead into the season. But follow us on Twitter at DTWIU Women's Basketball. WBB for news and info. You can also just Google or search rather on Twitter doing the work, and hopefully our accounts will pop up for you. You can also keep an eye out on the Assembly Call Twitter account. We usually tag each other in all of our posts about program. Speaking of Assembly Call, they are scheduled for their normal show tomorrow at 9 Eastern and 8 Central. So with that, Jeff, it's time for our last call. What last thoughts do you want to leave us with tonight?
Yeah, and I didn't look at the schedule, Kathy, but it just feels got to be about a month away. Here we are, October
November 4th is our first game. Yeah,
so a little less than an exhibition game, but a little less than a month from actually seeing them on the floor against somebody else. And so that month is going to go pretty fast, and just got to say, looking forward to another exciting year. This will be our second, kind of our first full year, really, because we started this podcast kind of in the middle of, or at least a couple games into last year, because we kind of floated around, and all of a sudden it was like, yeah, let's do this. So, but yeah, so starting our second year of with the IU women, and hopefully everybody's been enjoying the podcast. We want to appreciate everybody who's out there listening and watching live on our YouTube feed and stuff. Help us spread the word. I'm still a big believer. All the things you can do to get your name out there, but the best way to spread the word about something is word of mouth. Tell your friends and their IU fans and get them to listen. And I think they'll enjoy the show. Kathy does a great job when she's hosting, and she carries me. So, I
feel the same way about you, Jeff. So
yeah, but still, anyway, spread the word to your friends, because we're enjoying the show. We enjoy talking with you guys as well, interacting with you guys in the chat and such. So, but help us spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who aren't with us live at this very moment, you can come see us do the show live and be part of the live chat that Jeff mentioned, the Workaholics. To do that, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall, and follow us there. Also, if you haven't already, sign up for the free IU Hoops email newsletter. It comes out every Sunday. And then after every men's basketball game, they also send a newsletter out then too. Also, you can join our community that you have at assemblycall.com and look for ways to join. I want to special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design. He did design our new logo. So I have a different one up in the corner today. If you're watching on YouTube, trying out some new ones as we kind of go around. It's really amazing. Hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to maybe get some stickers or shirts or things out there too, for anybody who's interested. Maybe it's just me, Jeff, and I don't know, my mom and husband. I don't know, but I'll get stickers and hand them out to my friends. It'll be all good.
But wouldn't it be neat to have a shirt with the logo on it? And we can wear it for the shows. Yeah.
I know. Maybe we need to reach out to Homefield. So we'll see. But most of all, as I'll echo what Jeff said, thank you all for those who are, again, listening and watching live in the chat or later on whatever podcast feed or on YouTube. We really appreciate you. We wouldn't be here doing this if it was just Jeff and I talking to each other. So we do appreciate you being here. So again, with that, we'll be back to talk IU hoops again soon. And until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
Good night, everybody.